on this edifice that we've just discussed so far, consider these two slogans, and you're all familiar with them. They've been part of the past few decades of American education, the No Child Left Behind phrase, and then of course more recently we had Every Child Succeeds. But if you think of that on the basis of what we've just learned, on the basis of the naturalness of the bell curve, because really that's what is behind the assessment regimes and the idea that not everybody is going to perform in the same way, and we're going to be able to sort people out. But these two terms suggest, in a confusing sort of way for most educators used to this other way of thinking about classrooms and learners and children, that it is possible for every child to achieve. But to what end? To so-called their ability, to at their own pace, against differentiated goals? It becomes a very vexed question when that kind of language suggests that it might be possible for every child to succeed to some comparable level. So that's the dilemma and the challenge that these two phrases put to us.
As Mary was just saying, these two phrases actually represent a surprisingly radical shift, a surprisingly fundamental shift in the orientation of testing and also the orientation of education systems. Now, what we're saying is a kind of provocative thing, because everybody who's had all these darn tests foisted on them for the last few decades as burdensome things, they seem like just tests and they seem just burdensome and they're just awful. I agree with that. There's no arguing about that. But underlying them is a huge shift in assumptions. So let me tell you a little bit of a background behind No Child Left Behind. 2001, George Bush comes to power, only just gets in the election, just barely gets in the election of 2000. And what's he going to do? Well, you know, the World Trade Center hadn't fallen down yet, and terrorism wasn't a great problem. And what's he going to do to make a mark? And he was going to be the education president. And the interesting thing that he did is that he got together with Edward Kennedy in the Senate, and in fact it was a kind of a joint Democrat-Republican production, and the Democrats had a majority in the Congress. So it's an interesting kind of set of political compromises. What happened afterwards is very problematic in terms of these aggressive testing regimes. But the No Child Left Behind idea is a very interesting idea, which is we don't have to put people across that bell curve. If the education system performs, no child should be left behind. And when President Obama rebuilds the act with the Congress during the end of his period in power, the act gets changed to Every Child Succeeds. Same idea. What lies behind this idea is a set of ideas which began actually about 50 years ago with the work of Benjamin Bloom, probably longer than that, but Benjamin Bloom certainly articulated this clearly. And what Benjamin Bloom did is he constructed this idea called mastery learning. So his theory was with uniform instruction, and here's the bell curves of uniform instruction. What happens is kids come in with this kind of, or learners come in spread across the bell curve in terms of their aptitude. You give them identical uniform instruction and they're going to come out the same way. They might have all moved on, but they're still on the same darn curve because the curve's a comparative curve. There's no kind of reference point of progress. So his challenge was, how are you going to help how are you going to particularly help the learners who are struggling? So they're not always struggling in relation to the work that they're doing. So what he did is he had this notion of optimal instruction, where he accepted the idea that learners come in with this bell curve of aptitude. I want to challenge that in a moment, but let's take it as given. I just want to simply reconstruct his argument for the moment. And then with optimal instruction, you can push the curve across that way. You can get more and more students achieving what's expected. How do you do that? Well, one way you might do it is with regular formative assessment that tells teachers about some students that need help. It might involve having students work at their own pace, which is, it takes me longer to get to that level of achievement and I have to do more work, but I can reach that level of achievement and just give me a bit more time. Or intensity of work with intensive tutoring, where we come in with a specialist who helps a particular student to reach what's called the standard. Now again, standards-based education, as opposed to standardisation, a different kind of concept, is the idea that if we set these objectives, that it's possible for every student to reach them. Now let me go back to the idea of aptitude. We've already sorted kids when they come in, or learners, let's just not say kids, when they come into a class. We've sorted them by age. We often sort them by exam results. In the university, if you're in the medical school doing medicine, you've had to get a crazy high score to get in to do it, or law. So what we've done is we've already sorted people, and the idea that once we've already sorted people into homogenous groups, that we still want to put them over a bell curve and we still want to insist in inequality, that seems slightly crazy. So anyhow, Bloom accepts that as a starting point. I don't accept it as a starting point, but he does. But he says it's possible to shift the curve, and this is the interesting part, towards mastery. So mastery is a set of expectations. So going back now to No Child Left Behind, every student can achieve what's been specified in the standard. It's not beyond the reach of every student, except in the case of students with disabilities of some kind, intellectual disabilities, and those students. That's why we still use IQ tests there, because it is a way of measuring those students' capacities in a way that can be appropriately placed. But once you're over that barrier, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to achieve mastery. And the aim of education is not to insist on inequality, but to remedy inequality by special measures which push as many students as possible, as close as possible to mastery. Along the way. And by the way, that involves recognising the differences. So the interesting thing about uniform instruction is that one size fits all will reproduce inequality. Differentiated instruction has the possibility of reducing inequality as we move towards mastery. So it's a very, very different paradigm. And this is the paradigm that has come to underlie education. And the reason, by the way, why we have moved away from this notion of differential native intelligence. Now, it's not that there isn't a reaction. This quite remarkable book, if you can bear reading it, is published by the American Psychological Association, is a defense of educational and psychological testing. And it's actually a defense of inequality. It says, what a crazy, inefficient thing it is to think that everybody could have equal ability. We're hitting our heads up against the wall. We're never going to achieve anything because native differences in ability are unchangeable, right? Now, I would say differences of life experience to do with the social experience of education and environmental conditions, those things are changeable, but these people don't want to change them particularly.